online for authors. I'm chatting with Twila Mason, author of Piece by Piece. Welcome, Twila.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I am super excited to have you here. I really enjoyed your book, and I see that it's won some awards, which is fabulous for you. But before we really jump into the meat of the story, give us a quick elevator pitch as to what people can expect when they open up the cover of Piece by Piece.
Yeah, so it's a contemporary romance, and it has the marriage of convenience and friends to lovers tropes. Um, but I like to say it's more Lifetime than Hallmark, kind of in vibes, because there's a lot of drama and there's some heavy topics. But and I that's kind of a theme in my upcoming books too. But all my characters overcome all of the bad things in life, with just love and determination. And I don't sugarcoat topics.
No, and I
Tackle
noticed
some
that.
tough ones.
Yeah, no, I noticed that, and I liked that. I have a question for you. What made you choose the contemporary friends to lovers type romance over all the other genres out there?
Well, funny enough, I didn't start out writing a contemporary romance. It's just, that's just where all of my writing and my thought process and my heart led me. I started out writing more about women's fiction, just drama kind of thing, but yeah, it became a romance. And I didn't choose the tropes, actually. The story just kind of told me what it needed, and I wrote it.
So that brings me to a question I was going to ask later, but we're going to dive in right now. This looks like then you are a pantser versus a plotter. Is that?
Yeah, especially on my first couple. But I'm really trying to adopt more of the plotting, but I just can't. So now I'm kind of a mix, a planter, I've heard people say,
Yeah.
because I can think that I know where a story's going, but then, something happens and I'm like, it just has to go this way instead. Like it's just, it writes itself sometimes.
So I think that you and I are in a similar position in that I'm very much a pantser. It's very much who I am. And I have tried multiple methods of plotting. And I have tried even methods that are like loose plotting, that are just supposed to be like guideposts. I lose my voice every time. I actually am writing a manuscript right now that I just eliminated over 20,000 words because I was so busy trying to follow my guideposts that I lost the voice of the story and I don't like it anymore. So I went back and I just said, this is crazy. So my advice to you is it's okay to try different methods, but use what works for you. I don't know that there's anything better about being a panner or a plotter. I think that it's just what works for you. I have friends that are plotters. They do all of their work up front. I do all of my work on the back end. We both do the same amount of work.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like what works for you versus what doesn't. So do you write every day? Are you a once a week writer? Do you fit it in when you can? Like, how does that schedule look for you?
Oh, it's definitely fitted in when I can. I have two little kids. Well, I say little, but my daughter's starting middle school. So she's not so little anymore. But and my son's starting kindergarten in the fall. So I'm hoping that come August, I'll actually be able to write like every day. I'll have much more of a schedule. But so far, it's just been fitted in where I can. So with Piece by Piece, I actually wrote it on my phone while my son was nursing or napping, because my kids are clingy. They need to be held while napping half the time. So whenever I was trapped under a sleeping or feeding baby, I wrote Piece by Piece, and it was something just to give me something to do. I was bored out of my mind.
Right, because you're trapped. You can't do anything. Yeah, I get that. Where did the story idea come from? Like, you say that you were writing it because you felt trapped, but somewhere you must have had this spark of something that said, "Ooh, that sounds like a story." Where did that come from?
So it was actually a dream. I had a dream, and it ended up being chapter 3 in the book. And I woke up and I was like, man, I really want to know the rest of that story. Like, that was a really good dream. And like, what happened before that? What happened after it? And so I was like, well, I'll just write it myself. I'll come up with it. I'll just fill in the pieces of my dream just so I can stop thinking about it. And then I decided to write it down, and it just kept coming. And I was like, okay, well, if this happened before that, then what would have happened before that? And, before I knew it, I was like, hey, I have a story here. Maybe I could actually try writing it down. And I've always wanted to write a book. But I never, well, I say never. In high school, I tried to. That book will probably never see the light of day.
The first one.
Yeah. I think I printed it out off of a floppy disk somewhere, and but I'd never actually tried. I didn't really think it was something feasible, and it seemed like a pipe dream. But I was like, well, I have the time, and all I have is my phone and a baby, so I'll go ahead and try. And I just kept writing it until I was like, wow, I have like 70,000 words here,
I know. Isn't that an amazing feeling when you realize, whoa, wait, look, I think I've kind of done it.
Yeah, that's like, I can't believe I actually wrote that far. The most I'd written until that point was about 30,000 words. And after I passed that, I was like, well, this is cool. And then I hit the 50K mark, and I was like, I'm actually doing this thing.
I'm actually writing. I'm actually writing. Once you got the book out, like it's all down, from start to finish. What did you do at that point now to get it ready for publication? Did you use a lot of editors? Were you using beta readers? Did you have critique groups? Like, what did you do because I don't know about you, but my first draft isn't really worthy of people looking at yet. It needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
At least mine do. So.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't do as much as I should have in the beginning, because I self-edited. But when you're starting out, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And so the first draft that I sent out to friends and like a couple people that I'd connected with, that wasn't good. I should have done a lot more self-editing. And at the time, I was a newbie, and I didn't know about the whole, like, the 3-act story structure. And I wasn't thinking about tropes whenever I wrote it.
Right.
And so it's actually undergone a massive transformation to be what it is today. Because I had to decide, what tropes I wanted to focus on. And I've had chapters that were at the end moved to the beginning and all of this stuff. So I had a lot of people help me along the way, but the editors that I use were amazing. Like, editors are worth their weight in gold if you find a good one.
I agree. I don't know, for me, my first editing experience, it was wonderful in that I had a great editor, and she did a great job, but it was really hard because it was like someone took my baby and they marked all over it and said, this and this and this. And I went to bed after that first experience, and I slept for 12 hours. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh. And then I felt a little angry, a little, and like, I can't believe that they didn't just love my work, because you poured yourself into it. Then I started thinking, and it was like, well, that one comment, that's probably right. And the more I did it, it was like, you know what? Most of these comments are exactly what needs to be done. By the time my third book came out, I actually looked forward to getting it into the editor's hands, because I knew she was going to take my book and she was going to give me some suggestions that were going to make it so much stronger, and that it wasn't something I could see on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time that I talked to my content editor, I was so nervous. Like, Yeah, I was terrified, going into it because it was the first real time having someone to really go through with a fine tooth comb,
Right.
and a professional, not just a friend say, hey, I think this needs to change. It was someone who they know what they're talking about. And yeah, I really wanted them to just be like, this is amazing, like you're the best writer ever. And
Don't we all want
best writer,
right?
But yeah, and it wasn't the case. It was like, well, you need to revamp a lot of things. And during that process, I added at least 4 new chapters, and I deleted some whole chapters, and that hurt, deleting an entire chapter is like
Deleting hurt.
Yeah.
Just all it. I mean, even when I deleted that 20,000 words that I didn't like anymore, it still hurt. I didn't like it. I chose to delete it. And it was still like, oh, that's,
but I spent so much time on it.
The time. It's the time, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk titles. Why did you name it Piece by Piece, and how hard was it for you to come up with a title?
It was hard. I
hate titles.
Yeah, it's so hard. And it was, I think, the 3rd title actually that I had chosen. And at first I had it titled Broken Homes because, that's very apt, they all come from.
Sum it up, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, that's so negative, and that's not like, there's a lot of negative things in the book, but the overall message is positive, overcoming obstacles.
Right.
And so I wanted to pick something that was a lot more positive. And I knew that I had this series planned. So I also wanted something that I could, carry through a series.
Right.
And so it took me forever. And I was about to just submit it untitled.
I tell people that my first book almost came out into the world as You Name It by Terry Embree. Like I was just so over trying to come up with a title. I don't know how you're supposed to take, 70,000 plus words and distill it down to 1 to 5 words.
Yeah.
And have it somehow represent. I would rather write 8 more manuscripts than come up with a title. Like it's so hard for me.
It was so hard. And I don't know, I had to go through the book, and as I was writing it and editing it, and I was like, well, they're picking up the pieces. And I was like, well, maybe I could do something with that. And finally, Piece by Piece popped into my head. And then I had to come up with a series title. And that was hard because also, you can come up with something you love, but if someone else has already used it, tough. You got to come up with something else.
Right.
So like that took even longer. It's trying to come up with a series title.
So tell us what the series title is so that everyone knows.
Yeah. So the series is Desperate Hearts. And like I had really struggled with that one because again, I wanted it to have the drama, embrace the drama, but also have kind of a positivity. And, it's hard.
I know. I really feel for you. I really do, because titles. My Daughters of Green Mountain Gap was actually named by people that knew I was writing it. Like I sent it out to people and said, "Look, this is what I had already written the back cover. Like I knew I was ready. I had no title, and I said, "This is what the book is about. Give me some ideas." And people started throwing ideas, and I took ideas from some different people, kind of put them together, sent that back out, and finally came up with my title. But it was horrible. I'm just not good at titles.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish it was an easier thing. So when you look at your characters, do you feel like you've put yourself into any of them?
Yeah, I think a little bit of you goes into at least one character in every book, at least for me. Like it's hard to keep my personality out of it.
Right.
I really connect with Aria in the book. She's a writer. Of course, she wants to be a journalist, but and the drive to go to college and everything. I was a first generation college graduate, so that definitely played into the story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that sometimes, people have asked me that, and it's like, I think I'm kind of in all of my characters in some way. And it's
Mhm.
either me as I used to be, or me as I am now, or maybe me as I hope to be. And
Yeah.
sometimes even me as I hope I never am.
Yeah.
Like I hope I
Yeah,
never
that makes
get to
sense.
that point. I hope I never do that kind of thing, and so
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. So in addition to a romance story, which it's a good story, and so if you're just reading it for a good story, you're going to enjoy it. I'm assuming that you have something else that you wanted readers to contemplate as they were reading your book. What is that? What do you want them to walk away with?
Well, one of the things that I accidentally did is provide some representation for some groups. You know, you don't see addiction portrayed in books that often. There are some. I've read
Right.
some. Um, but I actually had one reader contact me who is the child of an addict, and she said that she really enjoyed the book and she felt seen, you know, by a book for the first time. And whenever I was in kind of a dark place mentally, with postpartum
Yeah.
depression whenever I started writing it. And so that's part of the reason why there are some darker themes in the book. But, mental health is something that
Right.
people don't really talk about. It's still taboo. You can get judgment from people. And that's why I'm open about my postpartum depression, because whenever I was going through it the first time, I read Down Came the Rain by Brooke Shields, and seeing my situation portrayed in writing and put into words whenever I couldn't put it into words
Yeah. Make a
was
difference.
life changing.
Right.
And I would take pictures of pages and send it to my husband and be like, this is, what is going on in my head. And so I didn't want to shy away from mental health topics in my books.
Right. I absolutely agree. What's interesting is that the postpartum thing. I had postpartum. I have 4 children, and it was after the fourth one that I finally sought help. I didn't even seek help
Yeah.
the first 3 times. I didn't know what was going on with me. I just assumed that I was a miserable, horrible person and a
Yeah.
miserable, horrible
Yeah.
mother, right? Like that could be the only
Yeah.
explanation. And I finally sought help. And in my very first book that I wrote, I have a woman who goes through the postpartum experience far worse than I did. Like she actually
Yeah.
walks away from her child.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put that in there because I want people to understand, first of all, it's real and it happens.
Yes.
And that there isn't anything wrong with the person as a human. It's
Yeah.
it's the mental health stuff that happens in all of that horrible hormonal transition thing that's going
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
that you have no excuse. I mean, no like control over whatsoever. You can't do anything about that. And then in yours, you didn't talk about that per se, but instead you went and looked at just the mental health issues of dealing with abuse and drug abuse and alcohol
Yeah.
abuse and that whole thing. And then really too, you did a really good job of describing life for someone who doesn't have the means, the
Yeah.
financial means to make their ends meet and what that
Yeah.
looks like and feels like.
Yeah. And that actually was somewhat of personal experience, because growing up, uh, my siblings are spread out. And so I always say my younger two sisters have a completely different childhood than I did,
Right.
because my dad worked his way up through a company to where he's an electrician and he got training through the company. But whenever I was growing up, he was just a worker in the factory. And my mom went to nursing school and really helped our family. But my early childhood was, sometimes we didn't have enough things. And most people probably didn't know that, like, because my mom made sure, we were clean. She made sure we had clothes that we
Right.
needed. And so at school, no one would know that, our house was falling apart around us or anything like that. And so I tapped into those early childhood memories. And, I'm really proud of my parents where they got themselves from where they started,
Right.
and, that kind of fed into Aria's situation as well.
Absolutely. I think that that's what we do as writers sometimes, is that idea of, I know this piece. What
Yeah.
would it look like if it were a little bigger, or a little in a different area, or in a different, like, I know hunger. I know what hunger feels like. I've been hungry. I've been hungrier than maybe most people by not having enough food for a couple of days. I know
Yeah.
what would it look like if it were weeks? What would
Yeah.
it look like if it were months? It was a situation in a country in which there was no food and you couldn't get and so I try to take what I do know and then think and amplify it. Like, well, what does
Yeah.
that look like? And so you did the very same thing for you.
Yeah.
It wasn't to this extreme, but
Yeah.
it was extreme enough that you understood what it would feel like if not everything was easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If it was a little bit worse, I could
Right.
extrapolate my experience and
Right. And
put
say,
myself in
well,
someone else's
yeah,
shoes.
what does it look like if it's worse than this? Did you
Yeah.
do a lot of research about the alcohol and drug abuse addiction, the process, what was going on, or did this come from just general reading of other books, or how did you come up with your knowledge about that?
Yeah. So sadly, I know a couple people, I know several people that have struggled, and like none of the characters are based on one
One
person,
person, right?
in particular, but it's more the experiences that I have watched. In Southeast Missouri, where I'm from, there's quite a bad meth, problem, and other drugs too. And I've unfortunately seen classmates and just acquaintances that I've seen over the years that have struggled. And I've seen some overcome and I've seen some not,
Right.
and so I really pulled on a lot. And honestly, until I started writing, I didn't realize how much I paid attention to everything around me, and it's like, well, I can kind of put myself in that household, just based on what I've seen and
Right.
fill
Right.
in the gaps.
Right. And you did a really good job. You know, you weren't supposed to like Arya's mother. There wasn't
Yeah.
anything about her that you were supposed to like, and I immediately didn't like her. And at the same time, I also really felt for someone who had fallen to that level, to someone
Yeah.
who was so addicted, who was so unable to regulate their own selves, that they would be willing to let their kids just
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
It mattered more to her. Her drugs mattered more to her than her family, than love, than children that she produced from her own womb. That's like almost impossible for me to understand as a mother. And yet there's that part of me that does grasp that desperation that you must have at that point. And you did a really good job. You made me feel it. And so
Thank you.
I really, you did good. And then you had some little twists in there, which we won't get into because we don't want to ruin
Yeah.
it. But there are some twists with the mother that are really very good. So what are you writing now?
Well, so right now, book 2 is in with my editor. So
Fantastic.
I'm anxiously waiting for those edits to come back. And I just submitted book 3. So that's exciting. And I'm actually working on book 4 of the
Wow,
series.
look at you. Look at you
Yeah.
go.
I'm hoping to start getting them out a little faster. Like I said, I had meant to submit book 2 like a year before I actually did. But last summer it was a summer.
Look, sometimes life happens, right? I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes life just
Um,
happens, and people have trouble understanding that. They're like, well, are you going to have another book out? And it's like, okay, so life, like
yeah.
authors are people too. We have families and we have issues and problems
Yeah.
and things, and yeah. So I understand.
Yeah. It's been crazy. But like I said, with my kids both of my kids going to be in school. Now I'm really hoping I can start, cranking things out a little faster.
A little faster. Yeah. So in your series, are they the same characters? Will we be following Aria, or does this move on to different characters?
It's different ones. So each book is standalone, but they're interconnected. So one of the characters that you meet in Piece by Piece, trying not to,
yeah, don't spoil it. That's fine. One of the characters will show up in the second book.
Yes.
Yes.
So one of the characters you meet in the first book, the second book is her happily ever after.
Okay.
And then you meet a new character in book 2, and then book 3 is
book 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I like that. I think, because I wondered if it was going to be a series. It was like, I don't know where you would go, because you wrap things up very nicely. And I like when things wrap up very nicely, but it does kind of like put a damper on a series, except that what you're saying then is what you're doing is you're creating characters that will then pull through to the next. So yeah, I love that. I love that. So, hey guys, if you want to keep this conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to have an opportunity to win a digital copy of Piece by Piece. Find the post. Tell me something you liked or learned about this on this podcast, and you will be in the running. So, Twila, if someone wanted to reach out to you, talk with you about your books, talk with you about your writing, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Well, I have my website, which is just twilamason.com. Pretty easy to remember. And I have a contact me section on there. They can sign up for my newsletter, and I have all my social links. I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram. So, they can also reach out to me on there.
Fantastic. And guys, I'll have all those links in the show notes. So make sure you check those out. Go grab yourself a copy of Piece by Piece. It's a fabulous book. I really enjoyed it. And Twila, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I had fun.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.